Good morning, everybody. How do you like our sunflowers? They just opened a few days ago. On this date, August 5, 1957, at 3:30 in the afternoon, if you turned on ABC, you saw a new TV show, American Bandstand, with its ever-young host, Dick Clark. Many things contribute to rock and roll. Gospel music is one. The music of the Deep South is one. Blues, Mississippi blues, Delta blues. You also have urban blues from the north, like Chicago blues. Rock and roll has a little bit of jazz in its DNA. Boogie woogie from the World War II era also contributed to rock and roll. It has a little bit of country in it, which is an old American genre, and it's got a little bit of hillbilly music in it. So in the 1950s, part of the story is the homogenization of rock and roll, and one of the factors is tech, the 45 RPM record. You'd go down to the record store, get your record, and listen to it on your record player. Now you could also find 45 RPMs in jukeboxes, and as people tallied what was in jukeboxes, they came up with lists like top 40 or top 100. So this is another thing that all American kids are paying attention to. At the same time, you've got AM radio, which is broadcasting all over the country, and the different kinds of music are going across the country. So as kids are listening to the radio, they're all listening basically to the same thing. So here's Sam Phillips, Sun Records in Memphis. He produced Elvis. So you had all these independent record companies all over the place. You have songwriters in the Brill Building in New York City who are writing songs for all kinds of people. Carole King, who's on the right, and her husband Jerry Goffin were in the Brill Building. Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, pictured here with Elvis, are in the Brill Building. So there's a lot going on to make rock and roll national in the 1950s. Well, in our story, you've got Bob Horn in Philly. He has a program on TV called Bandstand. And it had a lot of band music or orchestra music. It also included people doing show tunes. But he wanted to shake things up a little bit. So he said, let's get some local teens to come in, put on some popular music, and film them dancing. And that's what you see here. Well, eventually Dick Clark, who lived in Philly, who knew his way around the stations, he takes over, and he's really good at this. He knows the music pretty well, but he's also really good talking to teenagers. And he's got a little shtick that he does on his program called Rate a Record, where kids would vote on what records they like. So he pitches this to ABC, they pick it up, and it becomes a national program on this date, August 5, 1957. Eventually, in the 60s, Bandstand moves to LA, and the day it moved to LA was the day before the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show. So the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and Bandstand moving to California happened about the same time. Here we see the Beach Boys. A lot of people made a debut on Bandstand or showed up on Bandstand. Here's Prince. And even Michael Jackson was on American Bandstand. The Jackson 5 were on quite a bit. A high school group called themselves Tom and Jerry. We know them as Simon and Garfunkel were on. ABBA was on, and everybody would be interviewed by Dick Clark, and he was really pretty good at that. Even the Doors were on, and there's Jim Morrison with the striped pants. Pink Floyd was on, and everybody lip-synced. Nothing was live. How about that? Eventually, MTV comes, Bandstand moves over to cable, and off the air in 1989. So as we think about all the ways we can get our music today, something like Bandstand that everybody watched was pretty unique.